Alright, so in this first video I'm going to talk a little bit about how the Heroku dashboard works and some of the functionality that I've set up inside of it to help us track changes and manage different states of the app. I'm also going to have a follow-up video where I'll talk about how to manage PRs and how that is used to deploy different test apps as well as the production app itself. So the first thing to note here is that I have a couple of different apps in here. If I just go to the Heroku like kind of homepage for myself, and the main one that we're looking at is this one called NoodleCow. So I'll click on that, and it shows you three pieces here. It says review apps, staging, and production. And the way to think about this is that anytime that we create a new PR, it's automatically going to show up here. And when it's in that state, it's basically in like a test mode. We can actually spin up a server to see what it looks like if it were in production, but it won't affect anything on our live app. Next, we have this thing called staging, and this is also kind of a test phase. But the way to think about it is that if we have a PR and then we merge it to master, then it's going to automatically get pushed into staging. And there's a big advantage of this, which is that we can set up like data and environment variables and a bunch of other stuff into staging, as well as the review app itself. But it's basically like it's like its own standalone environment that we can once again test with a little bit more rigor, or even set up test cases on. That's separate from production. Another thing to note is that even at the stage, it's not actually live in production. It's still just a test app, basically. Note that on this one, if you click this little arrow, then you can open it up in a browser. And you'll notice that right now it shows these Z's right here. And that indicates that the app is, like it exists, but it's not actually deployed anywhere. And this is actually kind of a feature of the way that I've set it up for now, which is that we have this app right here that gets its own dedicated resources for hosting things, but it's actually a free implementation. Whereas in production, I set up some account that has like, it spends like $7 a month or something like that in order to be able to basically use a little bit more database space as well as handle more operations per month. So one thing you'll notice is if I say open this up in browser, then you'll notice the URL is actually a little bit different. So this is noodlecowstaging.heroku. It's successfully created the app. And I think if I refresh this, yeah, you'll notice it no longer says Z because I've activated it. And I believe that it shuts down after not being used after like a couple days or something like that. And that's another thing with the paid dynos versus the non-paid is that this one shuts down periodically, whereas the paid one will never shut down ever. Now at this point, once again, it's not actually in production. In order to move it into production, we would need to, once again, at this point it is merged into master, but we would see this option down here to promote it to production. So once again, I'll have a follow-up video to show one of these in action, but the big idea here is that we can basically have as many PRs as we want in here, and we can create test apps for all of them, even if the app is in different states on each of our computers, which makes it so that if we need to test out like MySQL things or like a Google Calendar API integration, then we can do so in a realistic testing environment without messing up master, but also not just on local, which there's plenty of things that would be hard to test on local. So very useful to have this.